is a day for beginnings and for endings. We are dedicating ourselves as a congregation to children within our congregation, promising to love and care for them and their families as they grow among our community. And I am preaching about what comes next, what happens after we die. So we're marking all of the points in the journey of life in 1 hour or so of service. It is good to remember where we come from and to wonder about where we might be going. And also to know, as our Universalist ancestors taught us, that it is our job to love the hell out of this world and do what we can to make this world a little closer to a heaven, because nothing is promised to us beyond this. And very little is promised to us even here. So come, let us gather, let us celebrate, let us wonder. Come, let us worship together.
Welcome. Welcome. Are we on? Welcome to People's Church. All are welcome here as we navigate life's complexities and challenges, using all that's available to us, sources of wisdom from science, philosophy, the arts, religion, and our own experiences. I'm Bob Davis, a member of the Sunday Services Committee, and People's Church is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalists Association. Here we strive to be a beloved community, embracing and serving our diverse world. Today, as Reverend Rachel explained, we're going to be celebrating the beginnings and endings of life, but at the very end of the service, we're also going to do a practice to make sure our lives are not cut short by fire. We have our annual fire drill, which is always a crowd pleaser. We have a beautiful day here for us to, and on the back of your order of service is a map showing how we suggest you exit the building in an orderly fashion, with options out the front, options down the stairs, and options out the back. So we've got lots of options available for us. And now, let us sing.
Let us do announcements.
Oh, okay, do announcements.
Yeah. Singing will come soon. So as Bob explained, we will be having a fire drill to close our service. There's this handy map to help people who are in the commons notice all of the various exits. Keep in mind your closest exit may not be the door you used to come in today. And we'll gather in the parking lot. There's a muster station, if that means anything to you, kind of at the far end of the closest part of the parking lot. And that is where adults and their children, if your children went off to classes, will reunite. But I invite you after the fire drill to come back into this building if you're here in person today, because we'll have some joy. The Espina family is providing Malaysian food for us all for lunch as we celebrate their baby on her dedication day. And then about 20 minutes after the service ends, we'll have a budget briefing here in the Commons. So this is a chance to ask questions about the proposed budget for the upcoming church fiscal year. Please come, or if you can't, on person or on Zoom. If you can't be here in person, Tom Hackley, the church treasurer, and I are open to conversations and questions. You should have gotten an email that laid out the church budget on Friday within the normal weekly email. The Coming of Age class has its final session today at 12:30 in room 19. And as we approach the end of the church program year, it is time for the religious education program evaluations. So if your family has participated in the RE program for children or youth this year, we invite you to evaluate your experience. We have paper copies on the table where you picked up your order of service. There are links that have gone out in the weekly emails. Please respond. It's really one of the best tools we have for improving our program. And next week will be our spring music service, and it will be wonderful. Please come. And now, we still don't sing yet, but we do light our chalice.
As in much of life, perseverance is sometimes necessary. Our chalice lighting words today are by Paul Stephen Dodenhoff, the symbol of our shared faith. Joy and grief, health and sickness, light and darkness, peace and anger, life and death, wholeness and brokenness. We each bring all of these here to this sanctuary of unity in diversity for this 1 hour of this one day, and pour them out, commingling the oil of our lives to become the flame of this chalice, the symbol of our shared living faith. And Reverend, do we have other chalices lit?
So in addition to our chalice lit here at People's Church, we have people on Zoom who have lit chalices and shared where they are with us this morning. So we have a chalice lit in Parkview Hills, in the Millwood neighborhood, in Westwood, in the Landing Apartments, and in Westwood as well. What a gift it is to be together in time, even when we are not together in place. And now we get to sing. Thank you, choir. from the beginning, families have brought their children to their religious communities. They have trusted them to celebrate their children and to help raise them. And we gather today out of reverence for the miracle and mystery of life in children and in us all.
I'd love to invite. I'd love to invite the families of the children that we are dedicating today to come forth and stand on the steps. And I'd love to invite all of the kids who are here today who want to come and sit on the floor. You get a front row seat. You guys can come stand up on the steps. Oh, you guys sit on the floor. You come up on the steps. Leia, you come up on the steps. You step. Oh, you're part of the family. Part of the family. Teo can join you. Okay. You stand right here, next to Sophie. Should we? Okay. Why don't you take Mirabelle right up to the top? Stand up to the top. On the stage. And you guys can stay standing. Stand up. Stay standing.
Families that are participating, stand up.
Okay, logistically, what a great problem to have so many people and families to be dedicated that it's a little logistics. So that is a blessing. And yay, Hazel's joining us. So when people love each other, oftentimes they offer blessings and make promises to one another. And that is what we are here to do today. All of us are offering blessings and making promises to these children and their families, dedicating ourselves to them. And we are going to start with the blessings. Let's start with.
Okay. What name do you give this child?
Sophie Lyra Tortois.
Sophie Lyra Tortois. I'm going to take this rose, which means beauty, that's dipped in water, that means life, and I'm going to touch it on your brow, on your lips, and on your hands. And I'm going to hold hand. You can hold it now. And that is a blessing because we hope that your thoughts, your words, and your action create more love, hope, and joy in our world. Okay? All right, stand.
All right, this is Val and Glenn Melvin. And I'm going to touch you with a flower, a symbol of beauty with the water, on your brow, on your lips, and on your hands. May your thoughts, your words, and your deeds create more love, more joy, and more hope in the world.
And what is your name? Leia. We're going to touch you on your forehead, your lips, and a hand. So your thoughts, your words, and your deeds will create more joy, hope, and love in the world. We are so glad you're part of our church.
All right. What name do you give this child?
Willow Quinn Jacoba.
All right. Willow, I'm going to touch you on your brow, on your lips, and on your hands. May you bring more love and joy and peace in this world.
I failed to count correctly. You can do one flower for this once. So I was bad at counting when I went to the flower store, and we are one short. So I'm hoping the swans can share a flower this morning for our blessing. Okay, I'm sorry about that. We can arrange for more flowers. So what is your name? Avery. Touch you, forehead, lips, and hands. So your thoughts and your words and your deeds will bring more beauty, joy, and love into this world. We are so glad you're part of our church. And do you want to help me bless your brother? Okay. Can you get him on the forehead, lips, and hands? I get it. It is kind of a weird thing that we do. But we do that with the hope that your thoughts and your words and your deeds make a world with more joy, hope, and love in it. We are so glad you both are part of our church.
And what name do you give this child?
Maribel Adeline Ospina.
I'm going to touch this rose dipped in this water to your brow and your lips and your hands. May you bring more love and hope and joy and beauty into this world with all your words, your thoughts, and your deeds.
And what is your name? Do you want to do this to yourself? Self-blessing? Okay, I gotcha. Forehead, lips, and hands. So your thoughts, your words, and your deeds bring more love, hope, and joy into the world. We are so glad you're part of our community. I think that's everybody, right? Okay. It's hard when we're all in a big crowd. Okay. Okay, now it's time for some promises. First, the parents and other relatives gathered up here. I have some questions. You'll wait till the end of the questions and then say we will, okay? Will you love your children? Will you encourage their love of others and the truth? Will you strive to show them a life of meaning, beauty, and joy? Will you wonder with your children, grow with them, teach them, and be ready to learn what they have to teach you? Please respond.
Our next promises are for the children and the youth in the congregation. So whether you're sitting in the front or if you're not sitting in the front, I invite all of the youth and the kids to stand up. And we want to know if you are willing to help these kids grow up to be strong, to be wise, and caring. They look up to you as role models of how to be in the world, and you will be their friends and set their examples. They look up to you, and they admire you, and they learn from you. So do you promise to care for Mirabelle, Avery, Easton, Hazel, Willow, Leah, Sophie, and Valen, and help them learn and grow with them? And if you agree, I want you to all say, we will. We will. All right.
And now it's time for the promises of the congregation as a whole. So I invite you to join me in reading responsively a congregational blessing for child dedication, which is up there on the slides. It is our faith that each child born is one more redeemer. Service of dedication, we commit ourselves to the nurture of these children. Are you ready to dedicate yourselves to Mirabelle, Avery, Easton, Sophie, Valen, Leah, Willow, and Hazel? Will you strive to love and cherish them in times of struggle as well as gladness? We will love and cherish them always. We acknowledge the divine spark within each child. May we be surrounded by beauty, embraced by love, embraced in the arms of peace. Now, as Jennifer plays some music, I invite the dedicated children and their families to walk with me. We're going to go down the center aisle, split, and come back the sides. And as we walk by, I invite people in the congregation and also on Zoom to offer up a word or two of blessing, a smile, or a friendly face. And if you like, you can stick out your hand, and perhaps it might be met with a high five. Okay? So be careful as we weave our way out, but come follow me, okay? May our dreams for these children come true. May we all fulfill the promises we've made today. May these children always be loved and know that they have a home and safe harbor in this congregation. And may all children always be loved and know that they have home and safe harbor in this world. So now we will sing one more blessing to our children as we sing them on their way to our classes today.
Some space. Go ahead. Go forth in peace in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way, and may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go. Go forth in peace in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way, and may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go.
People's people are generous people. In the last few weeks, I've witnessed many moments of people stepping up to meet a need. A few weeks ago, before service, there was someone brand new making the coffee who'd never done it before. And I said, "Oh, thank you." And they said, "Well, no one else was making it, so I thought I'd give it a try." And it was delicious. I don't know if those of you here in this building have noticed yet, But the windows in the foyer are, especially the upper ones, are especially clean because a couple people spent a good portion of their Saturday up on ladders scrubbing. I know, right? We also have new folks riding the lawnmower, cleaning up our grass before it gets too tall and unwieldy on these grounds, and new folks stepping up to be leaders in the bazaar, which won't happen for several months, but the planning has already begun. It is a good and powerful thing that people see a gap and step into it, or people say yes when the invitation comes their way. So this is the moment where I invite you to continue to be generous in your support of the church with your time and your talent and also your money. The offering will now be received.
We each have been given gifts of life and love and sustenance. We bring these small portions to share in the works of love which none of us can accomplish alone.
Our words today for meditation come from the book The Darkness Divine by Unitarian Universalist minister Kristen L. Harper. She is a UU minister in Massachusetts, and when her church called her as their minister in 2002, she was the second Black woman called as a solo minister to a UU congregation. She writes, "I met God and she's Black. It was late summer. The air was still warm, but the cooling darkness was just settling upon me. I was sitting on the beach, listening to the waves and digging my toes into the heated sand when she sat down next to me. I was not frightened, but my soul began to vibrate, activated by the smell of earth and pine, out of place for where we were, and at the same time completely right and familiar. I looked at her round hips and stomach, her thick thighs and rich brown skin. I was drawn to the brilliant radiance of her night. There was no burning bushes or disembodied voices, just a beautiful smile of ancient eyes that looked knowingly into mine. We sat for a while in silence until I could no longer hold the intensity of the energy flowing toward me. Will I see it end? I asked, knowing in an instant that she understood. The end of injustice, the end of war, the end of hatred, the end of the earth. Her voice came not from her mouth, but from deep within me, quiet and fierce, sad but resolved. No, she said, the response I had known but was dreading. I was silent for a while, struggling with my sadness and disappointment, until she gently affirmed, "But you already knew that." Yes, I thought to myself, I already knew that. She said, "It's not what I wanted for you, for any of you." In frustration, I replied, "Then why must it be so? What did we do?" She remained silent as my anger swirled around me. Then she told me to breathe. "You do what you want," she said. "You do what you think you must. You divide and order, you demonize and scapegoat, you take and you destroy." "You made us this way," I retorted, expecting her to deny it, to explain evolution, to bring up free will. "Yes," she replied, "I did." I sat there digesting her honesty, seeing the deep lines in her face reflect the sorrow of centuries of her creations deconstructing her magnificent dreams. I had to ask, is there another life, another place that's easier, that's filled with joy and happiness? Will we find peace in death? She did not answer my question. Instead, she replied, "Is not heaven love? Is not the grasp of a baby's hand joy? Is there not peace in the quiet of the forest, in the arms of your friends, and the stars twinkling at night? She continued, spread compassion, build caring communities, cross barriers, tear down prisons, lay on this precious earth. Do not let your fears divide you from any being. Heaven is not easy. It is not found in death. Breathe, she said again, and took my hands in her large, rough ones. The frantic energy between us dissipated. She smiled again. I felt her voice swell from deep within me, and I knew my worth.
I invite you to join me in song from your seats. I know this rose will open. I know my fears will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
The Afterlife by Billy Collins. While you are preparing for sleep, brushing your teeth or rifling through a magazine in bed, the dead of the day are settling out on their journey. They're moving off in all imaginable directions, each according to his own private belief. And this is the secret that Silent Lazarus would not reveal. That everyone is right, as it turns out. You go to the place you always thought you would go, the place you kept lit in an alcove in your head. Some are being shot into a funnel of flashing colors, into a zone of light white as a January sun. Others are standing naked before a forbidding judge who sits with a golden ladder on one side and a coal chute on the other. Some have already joined the celestial choir and are singing as if they have been doing this forever, while the less inventive find themselves stuck in a big air-conditioned room full of food and chorus girls. Some are approaching the apartment of the female god, a woman in her 40s with short, wiry hair and glasses hanging from her neck by a string. With one eye, she regards the dead through a hole in her door. There are those who are squeezing into the bodies of animals, eagles and leopards, and one trying on the skin of a monkey in a tight suit, ready to begin another life in a more simple key. While others float off into some benign vagueness, little units of energy heading for the ultimate elsewhere. There are even a few classicists being led to an underworld by a mythological creature with a beard and hoofs. He will bring them to the mouth of the furious cave guarded over by Edith Hamilton and her three-headed dog. The rest just lie on their backs in their coffins, wishing they could return so they could learn Italian, or see the pyramids, or play golf in a light rain. They wish they could wake in the morning like you and stand at a window examining the winter trees, every branch traced with the ghost writing of snow. Now Without Me by Richard Blanco. Now that my brow is as creased as my palms, now that I am imagining my home without me, now that I ponder that someday, when I and my hands will no longer be here needed to till the soil of my iris beds. Now that I know they'll bloom like sapphires without my eyes to praise them or to wink back at the wings of butterflies. Now that the lavender will still perfume the breeze without my inhale, and the ivy will scrawl without my pruning. Now that chipmunks won't need my ears to hear them chirp as they dart and dash, content as children at play, unaware of their mortality. My father died at 55. I'm 50. Supposing I might only have 5 years left to breathe in the pine-scented breeze scaling up my hillside. 5 years worth of languid hours on my porch with my cat. 5 to ask why, despite a life spent believing nothing but this life, why now I want to believe there's some God that only my pulse explains in sync, not only with the here and now, but with all I am from. My mother's lavish black hair and sorrows, my father's immense silence, my grandmother's scolding that I crafted into a wisdom still guiding me like the aglow embers of my grandfather's cigar, the iron-red memory of his Cuban mountains that he never beheld again. To believe, I didn't believe with me, nor will end with me, never been a me, but a soul beyond clinging to any home or country, a larger part of a continuum in the amber light of each dawn that powders my face with the drifting gestures of clouds, alluding to the first time we assumed the sun's power was spark of flint on dry brush to kindle our own flames. That this very poem from my hands owes itself to the hands that first mixed soot and tallow with imagination to draw myth across their cave walls, and to the throats that first tamed grunts into breaths of language, gave meaning to the toil of spear and slaughter. The cosmos may well be a clash of rock and callous dust, but now that sometimes I forget names and days of the week, I want to believe all my endeavors are willed by an eternal desire held in the wide open arms of the Milky Way, and in the voice of these lines as consequence, as witness, ages from now, for others to adore as I have adored. Fireflies like constellations, moonlit shadows like showers, lark songs like thunder. Loose, as I've gladly lost my desire to name everything or belong to anything but myself amid my birches bending in the wind. Imagine as I've imagined life beyond my bones that now ache with rain and relinquish me.
When Death Comes by Mary Oliver. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut. When death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, this cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world.
I invite you to do a bit of a stretch. Find a good singing position for yourself. This is a new song for you, but the melodies just blew boat home. Or the other one. Sing of living, sing of dying, let them both be joined in one. Parts of an eternal process, like the ever-circling sun. From the freshness of each infant, giving hope in what is new, to the wisdom of the aged, deepened by a longer view, open to a deeper loving, open to the gift of care, searching for a higher justice, helping others in despair, through the tender bonds of living in a more inclusive way. We are opened more to suffering from the losses of each day.
Mrs. Turpin is judgmental. She knows the hierarchies of this world and ranks people accordingly. She divides and orders. When she goes to the doctor with her husband, she judges everyone in the waiting room by the style of their shoes and figures out their class and ranks them. The visibly ill people are lower on her hierarchy. She judges the people who work on her farm, mostly black people, because she is better than them, because she is the boss. She's better than her employees because she has more money, and she is satisfied with her position. And she concludes that God must like her best to have given her such a good life. It's a judgmental, vicious, racist internal narrative that the Catholic Southern author Flannery O'Connor creates for her character in a short story called Revelation. It's deeply unpleasant to read because you are spending the story in this judgmental person's personal narrative. I'm seeing a couple of nods in the room for people who know this story. But it's useful because I think we all have a little bit of judgmental Mrs. Turpin in us. And it's good to see that laid out so clearly on a page. It teaches us that maybe we want to work on that voice, that unkind voice, that hierarchical dividing voice that we all carry. And then at the end of the story, Mrs. Turpin is outside tending to her pigs as the sun sets. and she has a vision that echoes Jacob's ladder in the Bible. But instead of angels and ascending and descending, she sees humans ascending. O'Connor writes, though I've lightly edited out the hateful language, there was only a purple streak in the sky cutting through a field of crimson and leading like an extension of the highway into the descending dusk. A visionary light settled in her eyes, and she saw the streak as a vast swinging bridge extending upwards from the earth through a field of living fire. And upon it, a vast horde of souls were rumbling toward heaven. There were whole companies of people wearing fancy shoes for the first time in their lives, and bands of black folks in white robes, and battalions of people shouting and clapping and leaping. And bringing up the end of the procession was a tribe of people whom Mrs. Turpin recognized at once as those who were like herself, had always had a little of everything and the God-given wit to use it right. She leaned forward to observe those ones closer. They were marching behind the others with great dignity, accountable as they had always been for good order and common sense and respectable behavior. They alone were on key. Yet she could see by their shocked and altered faces that even their virtues were being burned away. In a moment, the vision faded, but she remained where she was, immobile. In the woods around her, the invisible cricket chorus had struck up, but what she heard were the voices of the souls climbing upward into the starry field and shouting hallelujah. In Mrs. Turpin's vision, all are ascending towards heaven, not just the people like her, not just the ones that pass her invisible tests. And the people like her are at the back of the line. We don't know what happens next to Mrs. Turpin. The story ends there. But I like to think that her inner voice and her behavior are transformed by this vision, this Universalist vision. Mrs. Turpin is judgmental, and so many belief systems, especially when it comes to the afterlife, are similarly judgmental. So many wisdom traditions treat life as some sort of test. We are here to pass a test, to get our real reward later. Our actions and beliefs in this life determine whether we pass or fail and what happens to us after death, whether we are rewarded or punished, heaven or hell, reincarnation as a better being or a lesser being. Channeling their Mrs. Turpins, the religions of the world have developed some horrific afterlives as possibilities for those people who don't measure up. Part of the Islamic hell features oceans filled with boiling water, boiling blood, and boiling pus. In some Hindu traditions, before reincarnation can occur, bad humans spend time working off some of their karma in something that's equivalent to hell. And there are many descriptive punishments there, like falling down a well for tens of thousands of years straight, or being on a potter's wheel, spinning while demons use potting tools to sculpt you into the right shape. Or you might drown in snot, or be stuck in a boiling pool of molasses. And of course, the Christian hell probably sounds more familiar to us because we're used to it, but it is also equally horrific, with lakes of fire and demons and devils, and often particular punishments based on what your behavior was. And there's something really powerful about all of these versions of afterlife punishment, about imagining the other, those people who don't act or believe like us, suffering because of that. There's almost a weird sort of comfort in this retribution. Sure, people who are cruel or greedy or thoughtless or violent or who offend us or cause massive, massive suffering or don't stick to the ethical code we have for ourselves might prosper in this world. but these traditions teach that they will suffer later. These ideas can make this world, with all of its injustice, unfairness, and just randomness, make a lot more sense. It is satisfying to believe that the injustice in the world is somehow made right later, that it all comes back into balance somehow, that in the long run, the longest possible run, on the scale of eternity, the good guys do ultimately win in the end. The good guys being us, or whichever us we mean. And almost every wisdom tradition has some sort of score settling after death, whether that's afterlives or reincarnation or something else. We humans demand justice and fairness and retribution and vengeance, even if we are not alive to see it. But this is not what our Universalist ancestors believed. They, like judgmental Mrs. Turpin, had a vision of everyone going to heaven, no exceptions. The God they saw in the Bible, knew from experience, and theorized about with their intellect, is the God of love. A loving God would not want anyone to suffer, and for that reason, everyone goes to heaven after they die. Everyone, no exceptions, even the people that we don't like. And the fancy seminary words for this belief are universal salvation or universalism. So that's what our universalism means in our too long name. And there have been Universalist Christians for as long as there have been Christians, but it was never a very widely held idea. And being organized as a tradition, as around that central idea, began in this country around the same time this country began. And at that point, the idea of universal salvation was radical in Protestant Christianity. And it's less so now. Many, if not most, of most mainline Protestants are Universalist in their theology. So that means many United Church of Christ Congregationalists, Episcopalians, PCUSA Presbyterians, ELCA Lutherans, United Methodists, American Baptists, if they believe in hell, believe it's empty, or very, very nearly so. I can't tell you the number of clergy in those traditions who have like quietly whispered to me, I'm actually a Universalist. As though, I think they should be whispering to each other, but that's okay. And we also have some Universalist cousins among the primitive Baptists. So I learned about them because I had a congregant in my church before this in Tennessee who grew up Primitive Baptist Universalist, which is a small group of believers, mostly in Appalachia. And they call themselves the No-Hellers, which I love. And I kind of wish we thought of that first, right? But they are, Baptist and very traditionalist in much of their practice, except when we die, everyone goes straight to heaven, no exceptions. And there is such an irony in the truth that we as Unitarian Universalists take part of our name from a specific idea about the mechanics of the afterlife that is now not central to the belief of most Unitarian Universalists. We, of course, have Universalists, small u, who hold that theology in our church, but we have a diversity of belief here about what happens when we die, like everything. We have agnostics on this question. We have believers in traditional ideas of universalist heaven. We have spiritualists. We have people who believe that we live on in memory and the impacts of our actions. We have folks who believe in reincarnation. We have people who celebrate how mass is conserved and the atoms that make up our bodies have been in many other beings before us and will cycle through many others after us. I don't know what happens to us after death. I'm not sure anyone can know for sure. But I can say with a significant degree of certainty that it is nothing bad. Science and reason, academic study of religion, and my faith teach me that there are no lakes of fire, or demonic potters, or boiling pus in store for us or in store for anyone. Those punishing afterlives are very clearly human creations built out of that very human need for justice and for vengeance. But what does happen? I'm going to share a few views, a few visions that I find most compelling. And one of the things I love about being a Unitarian Universalist minister is I can stand up here and say, these are some great ideas, what do you think? As opposed to saying, this is the one thing we all must believe. So Bob gave you a full menu of possible beliefs earlier in the Billy Collins poem, and I'm going to expand on a few of those. So there is the traditional Universalist heaven, like Mrs. Turpin's vision. Everyone heading to the same place, a place of love and acceptance. And just last week, one of you shared with me a beautiful vision of a Universalist heaven. At the end of our sports service last week, I shared wisdom from Abby Wambach, US soccer legend, about how she talks to her kids about sports. She says there are 3 things to say to kids about sports. I loved watching you play. Did you have fun? What did you learn? And in the receiving line after the service, one of you came up to me and said, perhaps that's what God says to us when we're done living. I loved watching you play. Did you have fun? What did you learn? It's such a gentle and loving God, a God that would be worthy of our worship. I loved watching you play. Did you have fun? What did you learn? Another afterlife that I find moving comes from science. The immortality of our atoms, the things that make us up. Physicist Alan Lightman describes it so poetically. He writes, I find a pleasure in knowing that 100 years from now, even 1,000 years from now, some of my atoms will remain in this place. These atoms will not know where they came from, but they will have been mine. Some of them will once have been part of the memory of my mother dancing the bossa nova. Some will once have been part of the memory of the vinegary smell of my first apartment. Some will once have been part of my hand. And if I could label each of my atoms at this moment and print each with my social security number, someone could follow them for the next 1,000 years as they float in the air, mix with the soil, become parts of particular plants and trees, dissolved in the ocean, and then floated again into the air. Some will undoubtedly become parts of other people, particular people. Some will become parts of other lives and other memories. That might be a kind of immortality. Another option, Billy Collins writes among his menu of afterlives of people floating off into some benign vagueness, little units of energy heading for the ultimate elsewhere. There are so many metaphors that point to this sort of benign vagueness. Death is a chance to return home. Each of us is like a cup of water that's poured back into some shared vessel after death. They all point to this idea that something happens to our spirit, that part of ourselves that is more than our body. But we are no longer ourselves. Our consciousness is either gone or so altered that we no longer have a sense of ourselves as ourselves. But if we know ourselves at all, it is as part of something bigger, a drop of water in a larger vessel, a unit of energy among energies. We continue in some unknown way, entirely different from where we are now. These are 3 visions of afterlives that I find compelling as someone who is largely agnostic on this question. I vacillate between these ideas, depending on the day. Sometimes they overlap. Maybe one of them speaks to you, in combination or alone, or you expect something else entirely. There's room for that here. So may we be curious about all that is unknown. May our visions for this world and the next remind us that there is no them, only us, that we all share a common history and one shared future. And may we do what we can to create heaven in this world, because anything beyond this world is a mystery. May it be so. May we make it so. And amen. Our closing song today came to me through a church member who died several months ago, Jan Park. She kept a file folder with detailed notes about what she wanted in her memorial service. Practice I commend to all of you. I've said that before. And this song was in that folder. So it's a reimagining of Amazing Grace. And we sang it at her memorial service. And I invite you to rise or get into whatever posture helps you sing your best. We will sing together.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that brings such peace to me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. There is a grace that conquers fear and comforts me in grief. When I have need, it will appear to bring my heart relief. Through many dangers, toil and strife, I have already come. For graceful hands have touched my life and led me safely home. These blessings have rained down on me, the bounty of the earth, the love of friends and family, the joys of home and hearth. In humble gratitude I bow, and for this grace I plead, to pass this love that fills me now to others in their need.
So let us live the life that is promised to us as well as we can, knowing that it is just this moment. And may we do what we can to keep ourselves safe and well as long as possible, which is why the fire drill starts now. Thank you all.